Hello, everyone. So I'm going to go over our essay questions since I didn't have time to do that earlier, and just make sure that you guys know what to expect for your test, and hopefully this helps you to review for it a little bit. Um, let's start off with the required essay question. I'm going to kind of go through what I expect to see and things that you should be thinking of. I personally think that this required question is fairly straightforward. So it's the UN determines the HDI of every country in the world. What three factors does the UN use to come up with a country's HDI number? The UN considers education to be the most critical measure of the ability of an individual to gain access to knowledge necessary for development. Identify and define two critical metrics used for education. What are the critical metrics used to determine the other two factors of a country's HDI? So, when you break this down, the first thing you should always do is define any terms. So in this case, you're going to want to tell me what in the world does HDI mean. So what does HDI mean? Okay, after you've defined what the HDI is, you need to tell me those three factors. And that's going to base most of your writing is going to be here. So what are the three factors that we care about? And in this case, we care about education, we care about health, and then we're looking at standard of living as well. Okay. Within each of those, you should tell me a little bit about them. Okay. And really, that's going to be your essay. You're going to be done after you do that for the most part. So, within education, there's three things you need to mention. You should say something about years of schooling. Technically, this is in adults. Then it's expected years of schooling. And this is going to be for everyone, but mostly this is gauging children. And then for kind of bonus points, just so I really know that you understand this, you should mention something like pupil to teacher ratio, and then the literacy rate. Okay. Now, when you go to actually write this down, don't just write what's on here. You should tell me the years of schooling is one metric that they use to determine education for the HDI, and then you need to tell me what that actually means. And then here for expected years of schooling, you need to tell me what that actually means. Better yet, give me an example. Obviously, on the actual AP test, you might not be able to give examples, but if you can, that's going to help you out. Okay. Same down here for literacy rate, pupil to teacher ratio. You should tell me what those things mean. So define them, and then examples if you have them. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. I think that's pretty straightforward. But literally most of the points for that question are going to come if you do that for each of these topics. Okay, so for health, we're looking at life expectancy. There's other factors there if you wanted to mention them. Again, just as kind of like extra information. It's never bad to have extra information in your essay. You can always include stuff like infant mortality rates, maternal mortality rates. Those are also going to be factors for the health. Standard of living, the main thing here, the only thing we really talked about in class was the GNI, which is the gross national income. Now again, you're going to get full points when you tell me what you're going to tell me gross national income, and then you're going to tell me what it is. Okay, in this case, it's the average income of the country. Okay. By doing just that right there, that quickly, you're going to get every point. Let me double check every point on possible for that question. So you really just need to tell me what those factors are, each metric that's used to determine what those factors mean. Okay, but again, please be sure to define things. That's where I usually struggle to give students points, is because of that. Okay, if you don't define anything, how am I supposed to know that you know what you're talking about? Um, if we go on over to the optional section, of these optional questions, this one's fairly easy. Number 4. The problem with number 4 is I don't think there's a lot of material there. I think it's difficult to write a lot about. So honestly, if you choose number 4, again, make sure you define things. And then the hardest part is going to be how understanding this economic part is going to be difficult for you guys. So I wouldn't even recommend doing number 4. I also wouldn't recommend doing number 6. But if you do number 6, just be sure you understand the difference between the World Bank and the IMF, the different groups, different organizations. Personally, I recommend doing number 5. It's going to be the easiest one for you guys. And again, there's lots to read. There's lots to write about. You're going to be able to break it down and organize it really well. So, what is the principal difference between the less developed and more developed countries with regards to percentages of primary, secondary, tertiary sector workers? Please give examples of each level job as well as where they're most likely to be found. Okay, so a lot to read into this. So you need to break it down step by step. Let's go ahead and define lesser and more developed countries first. Then define primary level jobs, secondary level jobs, and tertiary jobs. Okay. Once you do those 2 things, you then need to go in and give me examples. Okay, so let's start off with lesser developed countries. Lesser developed countries are going to be much more likely to have primary level jobs. And more developed countries are much more likely to have tertiary jobs. And then you should even mention that developing countries, so these are the in-betweens, they're going to be that transition. They're going to be going from primary to secondary to tertiary jobs. Okay. Now, as you say each type of job, you should give an example. So, examples would include mining, logging, drilling, agriculture, etc. Okay. Tertiary jobs are going to be service-based. Such as lawyers, secretaries, firefighters, police, etc. Okay. Then down here, give me some more examples. Examples of secondary would be things such as construction, manufacturing, building. Okay, any of that stuff's going to be in that secondary level. Okay, so again, there's a lot to be said here. I would also include a little bullet point between each of these. So if you have a primary level job in a lesser developed country, you're going to tell me where that is. So that's going to be sub-Saharan Africa. You're also going to find that in the Middle East, somewhat in Eastern Asia. Okay. More developed jobs, you're going to find those in Europe, North America, including the U.S., and Australia. Those developing countries, on the other hand, they're going to be East and South Asia, South America, Northern Africa, okay, so on and so forth. So give me examples, define each level of jobs, give me an example of each job, and you're going to be good to go on that question. Again, you're still more than welcome to do 4 and 6. I wouldn't recommend them just because they're actually pretty short questions. There's a lot of open stuff about those. Okay. So just by watching this video, this should help you because it's going to tell you to study this one instead of the other possible required questions. Another thing I want to tell you, just to see who's watched the video or not, you may use notes on your test tomorrow just for this essay. I don't want to have you guys come in with an essay written, but if you write something down like this in bullet points, I'm going to be willing to let you use your notes tomorrow. Okay. Just want to see who's doing their work ahead of time so that we can, for future reference. Okay. Thank you guys, and we'll see you tomorrow.